What's up, movie lovers? I'm Steven from the Hills Maniacs, and the next installment in the John Wick movie franchise, Ballerina, is premiering later this week as of this recording, and it's actually the first spin-off movie that they've done in this franchise so far, and it stars Ana de Armas as the main character, and it takes place, I guess, between the events of John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, and John Wick Chapter 4. And obviously, it's about a separate side character, sort of, from John Wick himself. So it's kind of a different perspective on the world of John Wick and a different look into the John Wick universe. So today I'm going to be answering the question in the title of this video: can these John Wick spin-offs actually work when they're not focused just on John Wick? So basically, if you're not familiar with the John Wick movies, it's essentially a series of 4 movies that revolve around the main character John Wick, who is a ruthless killer, basically. He's from a criminal sort of underworld type thing where there's a lot of different criminals and stuff, and they're all trained assassins and that sort of thing. But he retired after he gets married, back in the first John Wick movie. And then, of course, something brings him back into the fight. And then the next 3 movies, including the first one, are all about him being back into that world again, and basically going on a killing spree, trying to get revenge on people and that sort of stuff. And there's people coming after him, so he has to defend himself and that sort of stuff. And these are really just action-packed and really fun movies if you're fans of those kind of movies, those like action movies and that sort of thing. And so far, the 4th movie kind of felt almost conclusive to John Wick's actual, the story of John Wick and that character and everything. I won't spoil exactly what happened. You can go check it out for yourself, because I do recommend it. I think these movies are all really fun to watch, and this franchise is really fun. And also, so far, these movies have only focused on, obviously, the titular character, John Wick. But what's interesting, I think, about the John Wick series, and I think I mentioned this before when I sort of reviewed each of the original 4 John Wick movies, and that's that the world that they've built within the John Wick franchise is actually something unique. I don't feel like we've ever really seen that before in like an action movie franchise, where it's not just focused on John Wick, it's focused on the characters within that world, and the world that they created in the franchise is a criminal underworld that is run by a high table that's, and they have rules and regulations and everything. The criminals are allowed to, or these criminals and assassins and killers and all that, are allowed to stay in these hotels in secret, sort of, that are known as the Continental. There's different ones throughout the country that they were overtaken or overrun by different criminals and things of that nature that kind of run the thing, and they have to sort of run it as a regular hotel, I guess. But then the criminals also have to have secret ways of getting in there. Like, they have to pay with a special coin, and that's minted by the high table and all that kind of stuff. So it's this huge, basically, organization that runs everything within this worldwide, global criminal underworld. And it's kind of interesting to see how it's been laid out so far in all of these John Wick movies, and how they sort of introduced us to that world within the John Wick franchise. And now that they're turning their attention to these spin-off movies within the John Wick universe, I think that they have a chance to really expand on what they've already given us so far and really add to the story of the world of the John Wick franchise. Because they already had one spin-off where it was called The Continental. It was focused on how Winston, the character who owns the New York Continental that was introduced in the first John Wick movie and everyone since, and he's friends with John Wick and all that kind of stuff. He knows him from his early days in the organization. That series was focused on how he came to acquire the New York Continental. And so it was a big focus on him when he was younger versus the older version of him that we've seen in the John Wick movies. So that's really the only spin-off that they've kind of done from this franchise so far. And I kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was really intense, and there was a lot of action and that sort of stuff, and there's just some ruthless people One of which, the main villain of the series, played by Mel Gibson, was a really ruthless killer and that sort of thing. And he really played that character really well. I think if you're a fan of Mel Gibson or whatever, and you like his acting or whatever, I think he did really good in that series. But that's really the only spin-off that they've done so far. And now they announced that they're doing this spin-off movie, Ballerina, which is coming out, as I said, it comes out June 6th of this year. And it's basically focusing on another character, another sort of a trained assassin, similar to John Wick, who's off on her own adventure, her own quest for revenge against whoever for whatever reason. But it looks like it is going to be similar to the story of what John Wick had to go through in his own movies. And with that in mind, that kind of gives me hope for this franchise to really blossom out and become one of the best action movie franchises of all time. So to answer that question, I think they can make these spin-offs work if they continue on from Ballerina and make some other spin-offs within the John Wick universe. I think they can make them work as long as they make them similar to John Wick, and not too similar where like the characters feel like they are John Wick, because then that kind of takes away from how special John Wick was as a character, and the mystique and fear that his character instills into other people that he interacts with, because they're all afraid of him and how good he is as an assassin. You don't want to take that away from him by putting that on these other characters, but I think these spin-offs can still work if they at least make the story and the action similar to the way that they did the John Wick movies. Like, shoot it the same, have the same kind of set pieces and all that sort of stuff. The car chases, the gunfights, and all of that stuff needs to be in these movies, and still have a good story in there as well, just like they did with the John Wick movies, because not only were the John Wick movies that great because of just how good of a character John Wick was, and how good Keanu Reeves was as that character, but also worked just because of the story that they put into the movie as well. It's not just all action and like nothing else in it. It's just boom, 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 boom. They had a story behind why he's going after these people, why he's doing these things, etc. They kind of did some flashbacks, sort of, or like explained who he was in the past and that kind of thing. So they focused a lot on the story as well and didn't just focus on the action. So if they want to make these spin-offs work as well, I think they need to leave that format in all these movies and make it still work. And it will feel different just because it's not John Wick. It's kind of getting us excited almost, if you're a fan of the franchise, that they are considering all of these different spin-offs and things that are interconnected or interwoven within the John Wick story that's been told through the 4 John Wick movies so far. And I like that even some of them that they've considered making as well, like for the future, or the ones that have been rumored or something, all kind of tie into what happened in the 4th John Wick movie. So they're not just spin-offs for the sake of having spin-offs, they're spin-offs that are still connected to John Wick in a similar fashion to what like the MCU is, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All the Marvel movies are tied into each other in some way or another because they exist in the same universe. Like this franchise, this John Wick franchise, for example, could have easily just been like, they just wanted to have the same kind of movie, just with a random character that has no affiliation to John Wick whatsoever, but some of them are going to have that and some aren't, I guess. I don't know how many movies they're considering. I feel like this one is probably just their sort of like jumping off point. Like they want to see if this one is successful, then maybe they'll be successful with others, so they'll make the ones that they're planning or that are rumored or whatever. So I feel like it's either just going to be a hit or miss, basically. It's either going to be a hit and they're going to want to consider making more John Wick spin-offs, or it's going to be a miss and they'll just, go back to just making John Wick movies and just focusing on John Wick, which they've already announced there's going to be a John Wick 5, so if this movie doesn't work out, then they can just continue on from that one and just make more John Wick movies, and like, he's the only character we want to see a movie about type of thing, just focus on him, and that would still keep them successful, keep their franchise going for another 5, 6 movies, however many they want to do. But I think there is a benefit as well to making spin-off movies, because Keanu Reeves, is getting older and everything else, and he might not want to do these kind of movies for too much longer. He's getting up there in age as well, and it might start to get stale as well if it's only ever just John Wick movies, because we know John Wick has won pretty much every fight he's been in. He seems like he's impossible to really take down or to kill or whatever. That's why they call him the Babayaga, the boogeyman, and that sort of thing. Everyone fears him because of how good he is and the pain that he's able to endure and still come out on top and still take out the target that he's going after. I think eventually, if they just kept focusing on John Wick, then that would kind of maybe start to get stale. It would just feel repetitive if every movie was just the same like that. So having these spin-off movies at least focuses on other characters and gets our attention away from John Wick for a bit, where we want him back now. Like, okay, we saw this character, but bring back John Wick. We want to see another movie with him in it, and then they can make a couple more of that, then show us some other characters or whatever they want to do. So I think it can work for that reason as well. It can be a benefit to them and sort of add more life into the John Wick franchise, and give the fans something more to look forward to other than just movies featuring John Wick. And one last thing, I do feel like if they do make these spin-off movies and this one Ballerina is a success, I could maybe see them doing some more with that same character, not just have a one-off, spin-off movie, have like a series of movies with each of the characters as well, and that gives you even more to add to the franchise. But let me know what you guys think just of the John Wick franchise in general. Did you enjoy the first 4 John Wick movies? Are you looking forward to Ballerina and any other spin-off movies that they may create down the road as well? Let me know all that down in the comments section. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more, and check out everything else we've got going on this channel as well. Thank you for watching the video, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.